Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Welcome back, everybody. Life is not always easy, shall we say. Sometimes you have to deal with situations. Sometimes there could be a little bit of conflict. Maybe you are responsible for a team. Maybe you own a business and you might have somebody that you work with, a team member that's a little challenging. How do you deal with that? We're going to talk with somebody today that works with many leaders, helps them become successful, and also helps them navigate through these challenging moments that may present themselves. She is an amazing life coach and not only works with people in business, but also nonprofit organizations. And we're going to get her input on challenging situations with our professional of the year. Karen Carey is back with us. How you doing today?
I'm really good. I'm really good.
So this all goes back to something that you've said in the past, positive intelligence, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Define that, please, before we even move forward. Or
Okay.
actually redefine it because you did talk about it in the
Redefine.
past.
Right.
Yeah.
I guess what I would say and how it relates to what we're going to talk about today is really looking at your brain and recognizing that we have positive thoughts and we have negative thoughts. And often the negative thoughts rule our lives. And that is not helpful to us. So with positive intelligence, it really teaches us how to ignore those negative thoughts, which are located on the left side of our brain, and really weaken them and really focus more time on the right side of your brain, which is what we call the sage brain, which are all those positive thoughts and really help us be strategic, solve problems, really be at our best and be at our peak performance.
Why do we often ride on the negative side? Why does that happen?
Well, I think it's innate. We all do that. And really, the trick is really to learn to control that because those negative thoughts hold us back. They tell us we can't do something because we've never done it before. We're not smart enough. I mean, all those negative thoughts that we all feel at times. So really, the goal is to help them sort of go away. They'll never go away completely, but really take control of them. I mean, we should have control of our brain. Our brain shouldn't control us. And so really what we want to do is recognize and become aware of those negative thoughts and recognize them for what they are, just negative thoughts, and they don't define us. And immediately think about, okay, what can we do differently? How can we take this negative thought that's come to our brain and how can we change that into something that's positive?
Do you feel that a lot of times we gravitate toward that negative thought? Just go with me on this as a part of
Sure.
evolution to protect us in some regards.
Oh, absolutely. The left side of your brain, which those negative thoughts come from, are really, another word for it is called the survivor brain. And it's really helps us at times. Like if you put your hand on a hot stove, okay,
Never
you're
do
going to
that
move it
again.
really quickly, okay?
Right.
And that sensation keeps us from burning our hand. Or if a bear is walking down the street, you're not going to go and walk behind it, I would hope not, or in front of it.
Right.
You know to stay away. That fear comes out, but it goes way beyond that. And it tries to protect us and tell us lies about who we are and what we're capable of.
How do we change that whole thought process when that negative thought comes up? How do you identify it and then make that change?
Well, the first thing that we do is really make sure that you're aware of it. Like I know what my strengths are, and I know what my saboteurs are, those negative thoughts. I know what they are. So when I first recognize those, then I can immediately go and say, wait a minute, this is a saboteur talking. This is not who I am. How can I change it? And really get in that right side of the brain. And one of the ways to do that is by doing PQ exercises. And that's really where you focus on other things other than the situation at hand. You might focus on what you're looking at.
Mm.
You might focus on your breath. There's all kinds of different ways and scenarios that you can do to help yourself sort of calm down, get grounded, and be able to then move into more of a positive mindset.
It seems like it's just, I don't want to say just, but a lot of this is awareness. Finally seeing it happen, being aware that, oh wait, I'm being negative.
Yeah,
Mm.
absolutely. A lot of people who are in a stressful job really struggle with sometimes going to bed and sleeping, being able to fall asleep, because they have all these worries or stresses. And most of the time, those stresses never happen. But we waste a lot of time and energy really focusing on those. And a lot of times people don't get a good night's rest because that's what's happening.
Mm. I'll I want to share with you earlier today, situation presented itself, a little bit of a surprise, not a big deal, but I will say for a moment, I was thinking, oh, wait a minute. How am I going to deal with that? What's going on with that? That's not what I was thinking. Really? And in short time, I just flipped it around. I'm talking maybe 30 minutes, if that. I wasn't even thinking the whole time about it. I was just busy doing my thing. And then I
Right.
looked at it again. Oh, there it is. Like the elephant came in the room. I'm looking at the elephant and I'm like, the elephant's not that big. I thought it was bigger than that. I was like, yeah,
Right.
okay, not a worry.
Right.
This is all good. What am I worrying about? But I've found that the more I've done that, or maybe had that awareness or that realization, right away go in the negative. We have an issue that it just mitigates or resolves, at least in my mind, much faster once you get in the exercise of doing that.
Absolutely. Well, I'm glad to hear, Steve, that you're putting this to good use.
My PQ is that it?
All
My
right.
PQ? Yep.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So positive intelligence, successful leaders really leverage positive intelligence to help them focus on a balanced and constructive approach. And they do this through mental fitness and emotional resilience.
Hmm.
So I guess I would say, if you've got a difficult employee, as a successful leader and someone who practices mental fitness, one of the first things you have to do is you have to stay calm
Hmm.
and be objective. And that's hard. You can't always do it at the moment. Sometimes you have to step back because initially those negative thoughts will come up. It could be anger, it could be judgment, it could be all these different things. So a successful leader really has to remain calm and objective. They also have to use empathy and be curious about the situation. And I just want to say this, how often have you worked with someone who is messing up? And at first you want to think, oh my gosh, this is just a bad employee. When actually, if you take a step back and use your curiosity and ask questions, you might find out that there's some unmet needs, there's a misunderstanding, there's a challenge that employee has that may not even have anything to do with the workplace, but is actually affecting the behavior.
Hmm. It's a lot. It seems like there's a lot to process here before we take action.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I guess the first thing that I have done is when I know I'm going to have a difficult conversation with an employee, I take a step back. I don't avoid the conversation, which a lot of leaders tend to do because they don't want to go there.
Hmm.
And I don't know, I think they think it'll just go away.
Yeah.
But that's the worst thing you can do. But what you do need to do is to take some time. Maybe do some PQ reps, go take a walk, get your thoughts in order, make sure that you can have this conversation in a positive manner without letting your emotions get in the way, because all those negative emotions are just your saboteur. And when you present to an employee with anger or judgment, they're going to come back with anger and judgment, and you're not going to solve the situation at all.
It's so true. And the saboteurs, it could be a situation where the employee is not doing what they should be doing or what's expected of them.
Mm-hmm.
And you may, from your saboteurs, think of it as how could they not have the greater good of this company in mind? What are they? Are they they're intentionally trying to derail us by not doing their job? That might not even be the case, but in your mind, you may be programmed to think that everybody's out to get me. Again, I'm going hypothetical here, but
Right.
that could be your saboteur, or maybe you've been done wrong in the past, maybe in your childhood. Maybe, could have been, let's go here. Could have been a situation where somebody stole your lunchbox and you're 7 years old. And now you look at everybody as a potential threat. So now you're looking at this employee and how are you going to react? You're going to come on like, what really, what? And to your point, take a walk. Make sure,
Yeah,
you've got it figured out before you engage.
absolutely. And that scenario is not that far fetched.
I know.
I mean, maybe that exact scenario, but
Hmm.
there's adults that grew up in a home where they felt like they were worthless
Yep.
and they were unlovable.
Or
Well,
or even unseen, right?
absolutely. So if as an adult you haven't dealt with that and figured out that you're okay, and that had nothing to do, you are not that person that
Hmm.
you thought you were, that is going to be carried on throughout your life, in your personal, your work life.
Yeah.
So those kind of issues need to be resolved. And it's not something that happens overnight.
Well, isn't that you better be it therapy, coaching, whatever it is to resolve those issues?
Oh, absolutely.
But
But
even
I
before you
will,
get there,
absolutely, but I will say that with those situations, as long as you're not someone who really needs a therapist, you know. But if you're just like a normal person who deals with these kind of things, um, positive intelligence can really help you recognize those and
hmm,
make a difference for you, so that you are in control of your brain. And we just, we tend to let it control us. So back with you, if you're working with a difficult employee, one of the things that once you calm down and you visit with them or have a meeting, need to use direct and clear communication. Okay. You need to be able to explain the problem and the impact it's having. And don't get caught up in being aggressive or accusatory, none of that. Because, like we said, if you go down that path, it's not going to end well. So, see, all these things, and there's more things that you need to be aware of, is that you really need to think through how you're going to manage this. Another thing that um, successful leaders do is they focus on the solutions and really encourage growth from their employee. And what that means is, as a leader, you collaborate with that person and figure out what are the achievable goals that they need to make, and then really offer them support and the resources that they may need. And then I would say, you need to be really self-aware as a leader of what your saboteurs are, because you need to keep them in check. Because if not, this whole scenario will go sideways. And that's not what you want, So I think that is really, really important. The other thing, too, is that a lot of times people feel, if you're the difficult employee, okay, they feel maybe like they're no good, or like they can't do this job. They can't figure it out. They feel like lost. So as a leader, you need to help that person feel like there's hope. You need to be able to let them know that you have faith in them, that they can do this. And with the support and the resources that you have available, that you can help them with, they can be more optimistic. And if a difficult employee is optimistic about being successful, the likelihood of them being successful is much greater than if you present it to them like, oh, I don't know. I'm not sure if you got this. You've got a lot of things that you've got to deal with. If you go into the conversation and it comes across to the difficult employee. I mean, we know, we've all worked with difficult people, employees. We know how challenging it is. But if you go into that situation, and they recognize that you think they're a hopeless cause, then they won't even try.
Is it, let's say you have a situation you need to confront. I don't even know if that's the best word. You need to speak with somebody on your team.
Confront is not, that's sort of a negative. Yeah.
Well, I know we were talking about confrontation, so I figured,
right.
Yeah. You need to speak with them about a situation. I don't want to even say it's an employee, because that's just not a good word. A member of the team, right? Is the pause the most important thing? Where am I going with that? Don't jump into it. Don't run over there and start speaking. Think about your direction, your intent, your approach, all of that before you engage. If you need to take 24 hours, if not more, schedule it and then work on it in your mind.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That is really critical to do that. I think anyone who doesn't do that is less likely to be successful.
Would you say that also applies to somebody who's got some good PQ, like positive intelligence? They've worked on it. They've gotten to a really good point as a human, but a leader as well. Even take the pause, regardless.
You're right. Absolutely. And I'll give you an example. You said about waiting 24 hours or longer. I would just caution people to not wait too long. I don't know if you've ever had a manager or someone who never talked to you about a situation or a behavior that you were doing that was not appropriate until evaluation time. And then you're like, oh my gosh, why didn't you tell me before? Those people have allowed their saboteurs to get in the way and avoid the situation. But what they've created is really this negative scenario that really causes the employee to even be less likely to make change.
Yeah.
So, keeping that in mind, don't let the situation go on for too long. Like, maybe over a weekend at the most, but sit down with that employee right away, because people have short-term memories. And if you
Yeah.
wait too long, the employee may not even remember the situation.
Sure.
So that's really, really important.
Yeah, I wasn't referring to anything longer than that. And yes,
Okay.
if you've ever been that person where the leader of your team comes to you and says something they didn't let you know about, especially evaluation time. That's the worst. Like
Oh,
if you said something, I would
absolutely.
have worked on it. Why are you waiting till now to tell me? And do you feel, Karen, a lot of organizations, businesses haven't really clearly defined for everyone there what the expectations really are?
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's part of the issue. Um, making sure, all those things like having a detail oriented job description, sitting down with employees on a regular basis
Mm,
and talking about what the expectations are, and helping people. Because as a leader, your job is to help grow that employee. That's really your job. And if you do that successfully, the organization or business will thrive. If you ignore it,
yeah. What you said there, no one else says. Wow. Your job as the leader is to grow the people on your team.
absolutely.
I believe everybody looks at it as no, wait, my job is to grow this business. The bottom line, that's why I'm here. No.
That's
Right?
that's right. That's right. And if you do that, then there's trust that comes into play with your employees or your team. And when
Mm,
you have that trust, they are going to work hard for you. They're going
yes.
to do everything they can because they trust you. Maybe they're inspired by you. They know you have their back.
Just going to say that. Yeah. Yep. Why do you trust your friend?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that your superior, if you will, the team leader, has to be your friend, but you need to
No,
feel that they're
absolutely.
they're aligned with you. They're on your page. They actually care as opposed to you just being an employee that shows up and then clocks out. And that's exactly what's going to happen. That person probably is going to quiet quit, just
Oh,
show up.
absolutely. So, one of the things that we can do as leaders is set those boundaries
Mm,
and hold employees accountable. Because employees or team members, they want to be held accountable. We all mess up. But if you let people get away with it, then they're like, oh, this person doesn't really care.
mm,
So doing that, and then also making sure that you hold yourself accountable to your team. Like I mess up. When I was executive director, I always messed up. I'm not perfect. And I would make sure that my team, I would own it.
own it. Yeah.
Absolutely. And when you do that, I think there's more respect that your team has for you. And they, in turn, are willing to say, I messed up. And how can you help me so that we can fix this?
This is so important for organizations. Everything you're saying here today. I'm glad we talked about this. Um, and you've talked about positive intelligence before, but this is it at its finest, I do believe, where you're really, really using what you could learn from your coaching to pilot your team and what's important and how to deal with those situations that are going to show up. It's inevitable. There's going to be those
Oh,
those challenges.
absolutely. Absolutely.
How do we engage you, Karen? How do we connect with you?
Well, you can visit my website at www.thrivecoachingandconsulting.com, and please spell it out, or call me at 775-790-2978.
Love talking with you. Love all this insight. And you've talked about PQ reps. You've mentioned that before. Maybe next time we get together, we can demonstrate even further what those reps are and different things that we can do.
Absolutely. We
It'd be
can do
great.
that.
I love it.
All
And
right.
more. Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks for being here today.
Take care.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.